It's time to step behind the scenes and take a closer look at the Owen Sound Attack. This is Bear Tracker Weekly. Here's your host, JC Coots.
Welcome to another episode of Bear Tracker Weekly, and what a jam-packed episode we have. The most guests ever. We've got 7 different features this week, including Carter George and Allison Kennedy Davies. One is the goalie for the Owen Sound Attack. The other is a photographer with the Attack. Both were at the World Junior Hockey Championships, and we'll talk to both about their experiences. Also joining us will be one of the newest faces on the Owen Sound Attack, Cole Zurawski, who had quite the week to make a debut with the team. We'll chat with him after his first game on Wednesday night. Also joining us will be Dale DeGray, the general manager of the Attack, to break down all the craziness that was OHL trade deadline week. We'll chat with Landen Hookey, the brand new captain of the Owen Sound Attack, plus Coach Scott Wray following the Attack's loss against the London Knights, wrapping up the week on Saturday night. And another edition of the Media Room Roundtable is also on the way as we break down all of the trades and some of the craziness that took place during the OHL trade deadline. It's a busy one. Strap in. Here we go. Episode 16 starts now. Well, Owen Sound Attack goaltender Carter George has established himself as the goalie of the future for Team Canada. Although the results weren't what he wanted at the World Juniors, he still had a pretty good showing. We talked to him about that experience, plus a big win coming back to face the Barrie Colts with the Owen Sound Attack. Here's Carter George after Wednesday night's win.
All right, Carter, obviously you've been on the podcast a few times before. Back now from the World Juniors. First, though, let's talk about the game tonight. First game back, 25 saves. Incredible effort by the team tonight to beat the first-place team in the Eastern Conference. What did you think about the effort from the boys tonight?
Yeah, like I said, it was unbelievable. I mean, the guys coming together, group coming together. I mean, a few new faces in here and a few faces left, which sad to see them go, but wish them the best of luck. And we kind of moved on from them, and we played a good game out there and stuck to the system, and we dominated that game.
Of course, you are part of the leadership group on this team. You've got the assistant not on the jersey this year, but it is yours. You're one of the leadership players for this team. To lose one of them in Connor Smith this year, the captain of the team, what kind of a void does that leave, or does it leave a void for the rest of the team to have to fill?
Yeah, obviously losing your captain always sucks, but we have other guys in the room that are willing to step up, and I think we have a lot of leaders in that room, even ones who don't wear a letter, and it just goes to show that what kind of room we have there, and I think we got a good culture going, and I think it's going to be good the second half.
Is there any chance to name you captain for the rest of the way this season?
No.
I'm going to ask you, of course, about the World Juniors. Obviously, you created a lot of fans across this country getting to see you play, some people for the first time ever. What was the experience like? I mean, it was a positive one except for the way that it ended, but 2 shutouts for you, 2 Player of the Game awards. It had to be something that, despite the result, you'll never forget.
Yeah, for sure. I would never forget that. It was a great experience. I mean, I had a great time there, and kind of the group of guys there were awesome. I mean, you spend a month with them 24/7, so you create like a brotherhood, and it's just awesome to have those kind of friends for the rest of my life, and to share that kind of experience with them. And obviously, it wasn't the result we wanted, but I thought it was a great experience for me, and I took a lot out of it, and I'm looking forward to next year.
One of the really cool things about the World Juniors is you get to learn about a lot of players that you might not get to see necessarily. You also get to learn about their families, too. I think most of the country now knows the George family. Most of the country probably knows your dad and how he celebrates. What was the family's opinion on the whole experience?
Yeah, it was pretty funny. We were joking around there. I mean, there's a couple funny memes out there on the internet that we were laughing about. I thought it was an awesome time. I'm so happy for them. I mean, for them to get that attention, it was awesome.
I do have to ask about one of the negative aspects of the World Juniors. It seemed like, for some reason this year, the amount of vitriol that was aimed at the team and in not succeeding was just off the charts. I know as players you probably try to block that out, but I'm sure sometimes it gets through. What was kind of the feeling from some of your teammates? Because you were subjected to some of it, but not nearly as much as some of your teammates were, very unfairly. So how do you, as players, how do you cut through that and just focus on the positive?
Yeah, I mean, sometimes it can be harsh. I mean, social media, we're told to stay off it, so that's a big one. I mean, especially after the previous years of not meddling, and for it to be at home too, it was a lot more pressure on us, and for us not to come out with the result we wanted. A lot of people out there weren't too happy about it. So for us as players, it's kind of just trying to block out the noise, and I'm not worried about it. I mean, it's just white noise in the background, and for us, it's just focus on what we do and just get better every day. And now we're back to our CHL teams, our club team, so we're just going and focusing on the rest of the season, trying to win a championship. So just kind of blocking out all that outside noise is big.
I'm sure focusing on the rest of the season, one of those goals is to get the Owen Sound Attack into a playoff position. A night like tonight, an effort like tonight against a top-ranked team has to have you feeling like, you know what, playoffs might be an obtainable thing with this group. Yeah,
obviously all of us have a goal to make playoffs, and I think that's a big team goal for us, and I definitely think it's achievable. I mean, you look at the group in there and look what they did out on the ice. I mean, we know we're capable of it. Now it's just about going out and performing and bringing it every night.
Carter, congratulations on the big win tonight, and welcome back to Owen Sound.
Thank you very much.
If you follow the Owen Sound Attack on social media, you've probably seen some amazing pictures of the players. Those are the results of the work of Allison Kennedy Davies and Sam Bushbeck. We had Allison Kennedy Davies join us this week to talk not only about her experience working with the Owen Sound Attack, but also her experience taking photos at this year's World Junior Hockey Championship. Here's our conversation following the Attack's win over Barrie on Wednesday night.
Allison, first question everyone gets on the podcast. Where did you grow up, and what first made you fall in love with hockey?
Okay, I grew up in Sauble Beach, just a short drive from here, and I was thinking about the hockey answer because I don't have a super straightforward one. I didn't play hockey, but when I graduated from photojournalism school, I did shoot the Attack for a while for the Owen Sound Sun-Times, and then I went on to shoot motocross for a long time, but I've always enjoyed being part of a team in a photography aspect, and that's how I ended up here.
And when did you start reworking with the Attack again? Has it been 2 or 3 seasons now?
This is the 3rd season, yep. I came at the end of, the very end of the playoff run when Mark Woolley was still the captain.
Okay, and obviously there's been some pretty special moments just in the last few seasons alone. It's inspired you to create a photo blog online. You run Beyond the Bench Media, and you do some incredible stories, just taking photos of the players and then talking to them, doing interviews. What's it like to go through that experience and connect with them that way?
You know what? Starting the blog, I wish I had more time to devote to it, but it's totally different than just shooting the players. You finally get a time to sit down and talk to them face to face, and every single time I'm blown away by what great kids they are and how easy they are to talk to and how polite and well spoken they pretty much are to a letter. So I've really enjoyed doing that, and I honestly believe that the fans are more invested in the team when they know more about the players.
And I think you said, too, once I was chatting with you, and you said one of the things that makes the experience really cool is that, you know, you're a mom yourself, right? So you kind of go into mom mode a little bit with these players sometimes.
Well, I think I didn't walk into this arena thinking I'd leave with, 30 new mom best friends, but that is how it has gone. So I do have a 16-year-old daughter. Thank heavens she doesn't go to OSDSS with all of these hooligans, but I do relate to them maybe in that way. I do see, sometimes when people are super hard on them, I think, hey, what if that was my kid? I wouldn't appreciate the way anyone is speaking to them right now. And so, I do feel like, when things are going great for them, I feel pumped for them. And I'm sure everyone here does, but I feel like sometimes I just want to give them a little hug. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Your work is incredible. I think it's been getting noticed all over the place. You've had some really cool trips where I think you followed Carter last season to the top prospects game in Moncton, New Brunswick. This year, of course, the World Junior Hockey Championships. We'll talk about that in a second. But just tell me about some of the doors that have opened as a result of your incredible work.
Yeah, I think I have had experience way back with getting credentials to things like the X Games. I've shot that 3 times in my life, and I just I'm good at making connections. And the World Juniors plan sort of started last year with the Prospects game, and I figured if I started to make those relationships with the Hockey News that I'd have a chance of getting in. And I figured, in Ottawa, best chance ever to actually be there. So yeah, it's not really I don't know if it's doors opening or if it's just, nudging them open gently yourself. Sometimes it just doesn't hurt to ask. And, I don't know if everyone wants to spend their vacation doing that, but I definitely went back to work pretty tired. But it's totally worth it. So.
What was the experience, first of all, because you covered the majority of the World Junior Tournament. Obviously, the Canada Games, you were there to photograph Carter and the rest of the team as well. What were those games like, the atmosphere? Even though the result wasn't great, but the atmosphere in that building must have been something else.
Oh, yeah. I don't know if there's anything quite like that, like 20,000 people cheering for, the home team. You got to go to a game, too. Obviously, I got to be there. I didn't go to all of the Canadian games. I missed a few for the holidays, but I did get to be there for one of Carter's shutouts. The atmosphere is crazy. We drove back down for the second half of the tournament, and I convinced my family to get a ticket for the quarterfinals because I was like, you really need to feel what that building is like with everybody, watching and focused on you. And it did make me think, I don't know why you would ever want to be a goalie in that situation. I had even more respect than I already had for Carter, standing down there, being willing to put that jersey on and put yourself out there, in front of an entire nation that is quite willing to judge you.
Yeah, no kidding about that. Even though the result, we didn't get to see Team Canada in the final, you were still there to photograph the gold medal game between the U.S. and Finland. What was that atmosphere like? And were there any little takeaways that you had from that experience, any little stories that you picked up that you'll never forget?
Well, there was a few things that happened that I'll never forget. Dale's going to he's moonlighting. But for sure.
What was the question?
What was the atmosphere like when the U.S. played Finland for the gold medal? Or you probably don't want to talk about it.
It sucks because Canada wasn't there.
Well,
I wasn't there.
Yeah.
It had to suck.
It did suck, sort of.
Being a Canadian.
The Canadians had all just crossed out their jerseys, the fans, and put Finland on. Really, every day it was just whoever was playing the U.S. that was not Canada, like anyone, they just would cheer for them. And the crowd the U.S. crowd got quite frustrated. They were like, how can you be cheering for Czechia when they beat you yesterday? And they would just look at them like,
because
it's not you.
I've been there, so I know exactly what you're talking about.
This is the first time we've ever had an interview crashed, by the way, for the podcast.
I'm fine. I'm here for it. It's good. I don't know. I think it was a really close game. I think that was exciting that it wasn't a blowout. Nobody wanted to watch a U.S. blowout. The U.S. was a very, very good team. They obviously had a ton of chemistry. They have that big line that plays together at university, and they knew what they were doing. But it was nice to see Finland push them. But it did make me think, hey, we beat Finland. Yeah. We could be here right now. But shoulda, woulda, coulda. That's hockey. So.
Do you have any big other tournaments coming up? Are you off to the top prospects game that's going to be in Brantford?
No, I got to stay home and do my job and such for now. But yeah, I do sort of wonder what's next. I did make some great connections with the Hockey News, and I don't know. We'll see what happens next. We'll see. Minnesota's not that far for next year, so that would be an option. And for now, I'm just pretty happy to be back at the Bayshore.
Maybe call for the Stanley Cup Finals this year. We'll wait and see.
I guess you can dream, right?
Of course. I'll ask you one more question, too. Where can people find your amazing work?
Probably easiest on Instagram at Ali K Photo is one account, and then at Beyond the Bench Media is the other.
And the website's just beyondthebenchmedia.ca?
That's right, yep.
Perfect. Well, Ali, love your work. Love Sam's work as well. Sam Bushback, the other photographer of the Attack. You both do amazing work, and we're lucky to have you.
Yeah, we're lucky to have each other, to be honest. We push each other, and it's been very awesome. So,
thanks for joining us.
All right. Thanks a lot, JC.
Cole Zurawski arrived from the Flint Firebirds via a trade for Sam McHugh this week. He made his debut immediately with the team on Wednesday night against the Barrie Colts, and while he didn't get on the score sheet that night, He ended up having a goal and an assist to be named the game's second star against the London Knights on Saturday night. Here's my conversation with Cole Zurawski after his first game Wednesday night against Barrie.
Cole, I'm going to ask you the first question that everyone gets on the podcast. Where did you grow up, and what first made you fall in love with hockey?
I grew up in Barrie, Ontario, and what made me fall in love with hockey was just my parents, my brother. They've all been around hockey, so they put me in skates, and ever since I was 3 years old, it's been my thing.
Hard to believe that growing up so close to Owen Sound, you've never played in this building before tonight, not even a minor hockey tournament or anything like that. What was the first impression of the Bay Shore and these crazy fans here in Owen Sound?
Yeah, the first impression, it was unreal. The crowd goes wild when we score. I love playing here.
Let's get your impressions on your first game tonight. First of all, you almost scored on a few occasions. You get the hardest working player of the game honors here tonight. It must have been great to get that first win and to even have some family in the building here tonight.
Yeah, it felt great. Obviously, first game here, we won. It was very special. Unfortunately, I couldn't Barrie tonight, but the boys got the job done, so that's all that matters.
How long have you spent working on that shot? Because to have a booming shot like that for a rookie, that is quite the shot.
Ever since I started hockey, my dad always, sometimes obviously we joked around. He made me shoot pucks, but no, I've just loved shooting pucks for ever since I've been playing hockey. So, yeah.
Obviously, it's a small sample size. The trade just happened today to come up from Flint. Anything that you've already noticed? Any differences between the way the Firebirds operate and the way that the Owen Sound Attack operate?
I think Owen Sound is just a really hardworking team, and I love that about this team. So I can't wait to keep going with them.
It was a pretty quick turnaround, too, from that trade being announced this afternoon to you getting up here and being in the lineup here tonight. Tell us how it all went down, how you first found out about it, and what were your thoughts on the trade?
Yeah, I got off the ice from morning skate with Flint, just going on about a regular day. But I got a text from my agent after my morning. My phone, you're getting traded on the Sound. Then I was fortunate enough to have Dale DeGray call me and told me I was getting traded here. I was super excited, and I can't wait to keep going.
All right, well, a great debut here tonight. Congratulations. Welcome to the Owen Sound Attack.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
Dale DeGray is our guest. Of course, we're talking today on, it actually is trade deadline. The OHL trade deadline has now passed. And Dale, it sounds like you're all tapped out. You've made all your moves that we already know about.
Yeah, you guys know everything that we've done. So it's and tapping out is probably a good way to summarize all this, because it was frustrating, probably say 7-10 days, but I'm happy with what we're able to get accomplished, and I'm looking forward to seeing everything moving forward.
Yeah, I'm just going to ask you first, because you mentioned that it's been a little frustrating. Was this deadline one of the more frustrating deadlines that you've encountered? Because I understand that there were some deals that maybe you would have wanted to do that weren't able to do. I don't know if the new NCAA rules that have changed have affected that in any way, but was this kind of a tougher one than you've had in your past experience?
Yeah, it's one of those things where you let's be honest, some of these are hours and hours and even into days to get things looked after, and everybody wants to feel like they've won, and I get that. I get that. But at some point you just say, okay, this is where we're at, right? This is a great deal for us. It's a great deal for them, or a good deal for them, whatever. And you'd like to say, hey, let's part ways. Let's shake hands, move on, and everybody's good, right? But then you get to no trades, and then no trades come up. And then if a player says, hey, that's not really where I want to be at this time, you have to respect that. And first off, I don't want to talk somebody into coming to Owen Sound. I used to do that 16 years ago. I'm not doing that anymore. And it doesn't work well. So you can put a lot of time in, and honestly, it's like beating your head against a stone at the end of it, because it's not going to happen.
I'm going to ask you about. We'll start with the Connor Smith trade because that was the first big one that got announced on Thursday. A big return with 7 draft picks for Connor Smith. Which is that like a record for you when trading an overage player? Because that was quite the return coming back from the Brampton Steelheads.
Yeah, I think for an overage, I think it would probably have to be. I mean, it's a great return for any player. Let's be honest, but um, let's look at the other side too. Connor Smith's a bit of a unicorn in our league. He's a humongous young man, and he moves so well, and he can add to both sides of the play. So yeah, I think they were lucky to be able to put those pieces together to get me interested. There was a couple teams. There was actually more than a couple teams at the start, but as it works out and you get more and more offered for players, then teams are saying, as you mentioned earlier about tapping out, they're like, I can't do that. We just can't afford to do that, or we won't do that. But no, Brampton stuck right to the very end, and they were fantastic to deal with.
The other trade you made was sending out Sam McHugh. You also sent out some draft picks as well to the Flint Firebirds. You bring in Cole Zurawski, a guy that grew up not too far away in the Barrie area, and we got to see him make his debut on Wednesday, actually against Barrie, and wow, I mean, that was quite the debut. Heck of a shot on this kid, first of all, and a first rounder, too, from this past year, a 6th overall pick. So getting him must be a big part of the future planning for the Owen Sound attack.
CJ, when we were looking at him at the draft, so I've got a lot of intel on him because of that, and it's not like it's 4 years old. It's only a few months old. So really, you take all that information and you're being given that opportunity to acquire a player of his nature. I think you have to really go down that road, and yeah, we gave up Sam, and it's a heavy cost, but as I mentioned to Sam and his management team, there was that, you know what? If I'm going to move Sam, it was going to be for an 08 player.
And what are the other trades that I know you were called upon, or at least you mentioned to Greg Cowan in the Owen Sound Sun-Times that you got some interest about Carter George, of course, after the World Juniors. You said there was a ridiculous offer that came your way. I know you can't talk about it or talk about who it came from, but can you give us any sense of what a ridiculous offer looks like or sounds like in the Ontario Hockey League? Would it have been the biggest trade of all time if it went down?
I don't know. It would have been for us, but I'm not going to get into it. I'm not going to get into any numbers. But it by far would have been the biggest trade that we've ever done. I can't sit here and say it would have been the biggest trade because Kingston made a trade for 3 players with 15 picks and 2 players going back. So I can tell you it was not that big.
Speaking of that, just looking around the OHL at this year's deadline and seeing what some of the other teams did, obviously the Kingston one was probably a bit of a shocker for a lot of general managers. But I think you've said before that it seems like the asking price has now really gone up for players, and what used to be a reasonable offer no longer is. You have to really pony up. So what was your sense of what else went on at this year's deadline?
Well, you know what? I think this year there was a lot of talk, and I think in some cases there was a lot of dragging things out, actually almost too far and too long, and then one team walking away. And I think for me this year, that was a little bit frustrating. And listening to some of the other guys, I don't think that's good. Do you know what I mean? And you wonder what's going on behind the scenes at sometimes. But I think everybody knows that at this time of the year, when you have to acquire some players, it's going to be get to the bank because it's costly. And but everybody has to manage, and you have to put all those picks in the bank for some time down the road, and you have to acquire all those picks and have them in order to get some of the players that you think you're going to need.
How is the bank looking for picks now for the Owen Sound Attack? I think you've stocked up the cupboard pretty full there. I think we've got quite a few picks in the next few years. It looks pretty healthy.
Yeah, I think we're going to be okay. I think we're going to be okay, and that's all part of it. You have to, you bring in a player, you move out a couple picks, you bring in a couple more picks, and it's, I think we're in good shape moving forward. And I mean that's great because we're a young team. It'll be interesting to see how the second half plays out. I know our guys are excited about it, and then to see what happens in the second half, and then come back September. I think we'll be. I think we're moving in the right direction.
Yeah, the nucleus that you're building of young players right now is pretty solid. And then, I mean, of course, on top of that, we've already seen how solid the coaching staff is all around in making sure that even the younger guys are getting proper development. They're getting pushed into situations where they're going to learn. They're allowed to make mistakes, and it's really paid off up to this point so far this season.
Yeah, I think your latter comment, JC, about being able to make mistakes and not missing a shift, I think that's huge. And yeah, you're right. I mean, the three coaches we have right now are fantastic, and I think the kids they understand where they're coming from. They've got great relationships with the players, and that's where I'm saying I'm pretty excited about seeing what can come from the second half because. I mean, we're not in the playoffs right now, but that is one of the things that they've talked about, and that is how do we get there? And I think if we can play more games like we did the other day against Barrie, I really think I like my chance. I like our chances.
Today, some other news came out, not a trade, but an announcement about the 28th captain in team history.
Not 38th? Not the 38th?
No, I think there was a little mistake by Scott Wray there, but
yeah.
Landen Hookey is the new captain on a day when he's going to play his last game in his hometown of Sarnia. So obviously a big day for Landen Hookey, and he's been a leader this season, both on and off the ice for the team. So what does it mean for you to see him get that C on his jersey?
I even said to him prior to just think about where he's come from. Do you know what I mean? As a mid to late pick going into the Sioux. I said to him, who would have thought you would be a captain of an OHL team, one of 20, placement captains in the OHL. And that's how far he's come. And you know what? It's a credit to him as a young man and putting the time in and being, not just a leader on the ice, but the type of person that he is off the ice. It's remarkable. And that's, Connor Smith was named captain, only played 8 games for us, and he was sort of gone. He was back and forth, but Hooks really took that on, and it was an easy decision. And I think the coaches were very happy to be able to make him the 28th captain in our history, and what a great young man, what a great captain it is.
One of the things over the course of the last couple of weeks, thanks to the injuries and thanks to the absence of Carter George, we kind of maybe got a look at a bit of the future of the Owen Sound Attack. Michael Deck had an outstanding performance, an outstanding debut with a goal and an assist. It's likely that he's going to be back next season. Trenton Bennett may be back at some point, of course. Just give me your thoughts on those two and some of the other young players who got a bit of a chance to show what they can do this season.
Yeah, and that's when I refer to the young kids moving forward, like those are all pieces that we don't see on a daily basis. But add Mason Roy in there, and I'm sitting there going, okay, one player we haven't seen is Jet Kawaji. That would be awesome to be able to get him in, but we just can't because of where he's at in the USHL. But the other three, you know what? Everybody's had a chance to see them, and I would like to think that anybody that's watched them can sit there and say, okay, they're going to add to what we have, and that's all you can ask for. And I think in September it's going to be exciting to see them all come back and try to figure out where they fit in amongst our group. But all three or four of those kids, they're all going to make us better, and it's all about competition. And no, we'll be better for sure.
I know that you said earlier that after the win over Barrie on Wednesday, it kind of gives you hope that we might be a playoff team moving forward. You still obviously have that belief that with the pieces we've got, and even though we've seen a couple of big players, literally big players, and Connor Smith and Sam McHugh leave the team, there's still a pretty good chance that this team could be in the top 8 in the West.
Well, I mean, I said in September, my expectations are that we will be in the playoffs. And I think, our kids see that, that's not that far in front of us. And it really isn't. And to put a string of 4 or 5 or 6 or however many wins in a row, that would make a huge, it'd fill in that gap, right? So, we've got 30 games left. We still got lots of runway. And I know the kids are excited. So it's a good formula for success. We just have to go and do it. And I think everybody in the room knows that if we play the way we're capable of, it can be done.
All right. Well, Dale, I appreciate you taking some time on after what's been, I'm sure, a crazy week in your life with the trade deadline and all the phone calls. But I appreciate you taking a little time to give us some insight onto deadline day and onto the new captain.
JC, anytime.
With Attack captain Connor Smith being traded to the Brampton Steelheads this week, it meant that the Attack needed a new captain, and the choice was obvious. Landen Hookey. He was named an assistant earlier this season, becoming part of the Attack's leadership group, and man, he is dialed in to leading this team. Here's my conversation with Landen Hookey after the Attack's loss to London on Saturday night. First, I'll ask you about the game tonight. It seemed like maybe you guys were going to finally get that one against London. Solid second period. Tied it in the third, and then London does London things. What did you think about the game tonight for your team?
Yeah, I think we had kind of a slow start that first period, which put us behind the 8 ball. Obviously, we can't do that again, but I think our group responded really well between intermissions and came out in the second flying, and we look like a different team out there, and I think that's really good for our group. But in the third period, I think we came out good. We were playing good hockey, and they scored that goal from the point there, which is what it is. It's kind of a bouncing puck, but I don't know. They're a good team. It's when they get up a goal in the third period like that, they know how to play. So I mean, it is really tough, but I think our group responded well.
You've been a part of the leadership group for this team since the beginning of the season. Now you are the captain of this team. Got the C on your jersey yesterday, same day that you play your last OHL game in front of your hometown in Sarnia. You had friends and family there. It must have been an emotional night on Friday night.
Yeah, it was an emotional night for sure. I mean, it was pretty cool that it kind of happened like that. It was in my hometown and stuff. But, yeah, it was cool. Obviously really grateful and honored to be wearing the C in my hometown and for this group. I'm just looking forward to this next couple months here and with these guys and try and lead these guys into the playoffs.
A lot of the young guys are really starting to step up. Pierce Bowie has had a few great games now, and then Cole Zurawski tonight gets his first, almost had 2 here tonight. Just your thoughts on how the young guys on the team are starting to develop.
Yeah, I think it's amazing to see. It's obviously you want to see those guys succeed, and obviously that helps our team tremendously having those secondary scoring guys. And I think with Q getting traded, we need some guys to step up here with some goals and stuff. And I think those guys really took that on, and they know where they're at. And I think it's great that they're stepping up and they're doing well now.
Yesterday, the Attack shared a video of you getting the jersey with the C on it, and you kind of got a chance to address the group now for the first time as the captain. And one of the things you said is that this is a team that's probably going to make the playoffs. Certainly, it looks like you're leading by example. What do you think it's going to take to get in, and what's special about this group to get there?
Yeah, I think it's going to be, we just have to take game by game every night. We got to win every shift we go out. Yeah, like I said, it's not going to be easy. It's going to be, it's a good challenge for us. And I think if we keep playing the way we did in that second period and how we play against Barrie and Sarnia, I think we'll be there. It's just going to, it's going to take time, and we got to be at the rink every day with that in mind.
Landen Hookey, great job on 2 out of 3 this week, and congratulations on being the 28th captain in Attack history.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. Thanks.
Owen Sound Attack won 2 of 3 games this week. Unfortunately, the London Knights were just a little too much to handle, although the Attack had a very strong showing against a very strong London Knights team. Here's Coach Scott Wray with his thoughts after the game on Saturday night.
I'll just ask you about the game here tonight. Obviously, we saw a solid second period against the London Knights. It seemed like tonight it was maybe going to be the night that the Attack finally had their number. What did you think of that effort against the Knights?
Well, I thought we talked about coming out with no respect for them, and I thought we sat back and watched them. They're a very good hockey team. They're like I said before, they're probably the best London Knight hockey team in the last 8 years in the league that I've been in the league. So they're high flying. They got 4 lines that could come at you. They got 6D and a couple goalies that are really good. So I thought we sat and we watched the game, and then we came in, made a couple adjustments, and then we got on our toes. Carter said a few words that were needed in that room, which is easier for a coach to come in after, right? So, it was one of those things that in this league, if you get down 4-0, it's really hard to win.
Looking at some of the positives, though, this week, a couple wins this week, obviously, one against the top team in the Eastern Conference. You got to see your newest player, Cole Zurawski, get a goal and an assist here tonight. Almost had a couple of goals on Wednesday night. Must be very impressed with what you're seeing from him very early.
Yeah. The young guys, the future's bright, right? The future's bright. Not to mention, though, like we're getting led by Landen Hookey and the older guys in the right spot. So Zurawski's come in and he shoots the puck well off the fly. He doesn't need much time. I joke like it's like a Phil Kessel type sweep, and he just rips it. So him and Bowie are finding some chemistry, and McDonald's playing really well with them. So they have a lot of different attributes on that line, and I think it really helps the 3 of them.
Prior to this week, you had gone 7 games and only 8 goals scored in those 7 games. This week, 14 goals in 3 games. Looks like things are really clicking well.
Yeah, some good line combinations, and they're kids, right? There's no magic potion, so it's kind of like, there's no cheat code. All of a sudden it pours them in, and then all of a sudden you go dry. And tonight would have been one of those games if we didn't scratch and claw back. Who knows what it would have been? We got a beautiful crowd tonight, and you don't want to lay down against a team like that. You want to put on a show and work hard and show that we're not going to roll over. And I really think that's it was a really good effort by us to crawl and scratch and claw back into that game.
Something that was missing from the team this week, thanks to a trade with Connor Smith, was a captain. Yesterday it was decided that the new captain's going to be Landen Hookey. Just your thoughts on Landen and the leadership role he's played, first with the assistant on his jersey, and now he's got the C. Yeah,
it was a no-brainer. Landen's been unbelievable in that dressing room. Landen could have asked to go and play somewhere else and play on a guaranteed playoff team, and we would have granted that. But he chose to be here and help us scratch and claw into those 8th or 7th spot. And he's been awesome in the dressing room. He's awesome with the young guys. A lot of kids in that room can learn from him the way he plays every night. Shift in, shift out. Penalty kill, power play, 5-on-5. He's a constant professional for us.
2 out of 3 this week, Coach. Congratulations, and best of luck on another big week next week.
Yeah, it doesn't get much easier, but we have a full week to rest and get ready, so it'll be nice to not have that Wednesday game and get into Brampton on Friday.
Thanks, Scott.
Thank you.
We once again reconvene the Media Room Roundtable to break down the craziness that was the OHL trade deadline, and also to talk about some of the moves that the Attack made this week. Here's Mark, Adrian, Greg, Matt, and myself before the game against the London Knights on Saturday night in the Media Room.
All right, Media Room Roundtable. We've got Mark McKelvey and Adrian Musso from Rogers TV. Matt is here from 560 CFOS. Greg Cowan here from the Owen Sound Sun-Times. Guys, I guess We'll start with the trade deadline. It has now officially passed. The Attack were very busy. They sent out Captain Connor Smith. They sent out Sam McHugh. They bring back Cole Zurawski and a bunch of draft picks. How do we grade the Attack's draft deadline?
That's a good question. I hadn't thought about giving it a grade. I thought it was very good, so very good to me. Let's go with an A-. There's always room to have maybe done a little more, I guess you could say, but the fact that they now have 2 players from the most recent priority selection out of that first round, and Cole Zurawski and already Pierce Bowie, that's great for the future. That sets you up beautifully. And the draft picks they got for Connor Smith, I know there's been a lot of talk if a player could have come back from Brampton, but end of the day, it didn't work out. You got a ton of picks. You ended up with a player that I don't think many of us even thought was a possibility in Zurawski out of Flint. And I know looking ahead, the future is the complete conversation, but I'm looking at what's going to happen in the second half of the season, and I see some young players that already look like, they've made strides this year, and it just gets you kind of feeling good for what could be happening. So I just think it's good vibes. I'll go A-.
I like Mark's grade. I'm not going to jump off that branch. A- I think is good. I think Attack GM Dale DeGray accomplished what he would have set out to do in this trade deadline. The addition of Cole Zurawski cannot be understated. As Mark mentioned, he was the number 6 pick in the most recent OHL priority selection, and he just fits the Attack timeline extremely well. This is a player that the Attack coveted at the OHL priority selection, and 8 months later, here he is, wearing an Attack jersey. So he'll fit well alongside Pierce Bowie and a lot of the other young players that are in development now for the Attack. Going to get some OHL experience, more OHL experience over the back half of this season, and then we'll see, because the Attack are in a good spot. They're going to have another high pick or high-ish pick. We'll see how the back half goes, but a top 8 pick in the OHL priority selection this spring, and then also some high picks in the CHL import draft. And it doesn't take long sometimes to be able to pivot and put a extremely competitive team on the ice. So I think it's mission accomplished for what the Attack set out to do, and that addition of Cole is quite big.
I think you guys are really easy graders. A-. That's a pretty good
Here
grade.
comes the teacher.
And yeah, I don't know. I think it was like average, and if an average grade is a B, I would give him a B on this. I think getting Cole Zurawski is an unbelievable pickup. But then you look at the Connor Smith deal, and if you're being critical of it, which I will be right now, you would like to see Dale DeGray potentially get a player in return. We got 8 picks, yeah, for sure, but if you get a player on the ice, you know how hard it is to recruit in Owen Sound, and we've seen, or you're hearing through the grapevines that maybe somebody rejected a trade here, and then he had to fall back to Plan B. So if you can't get Plan A, then how can you give an A- on the report card, in my opinion? So that's being just overly critical assessment of that singular
Let's
trade.
widen the lens, though, and maybe your grade will change if you consider that the Attack trade deadline moves may have started over the summer.
But we're not talking about that. We're talking about the trade deadline.
But we are, because those were just the guys that were here left, where the team had conversations with and decided it was best for everyone, for the individual to be able to continue to develop himself as a veteran player, a 19 or a 20-year-old in a different spot, and for the team to be able to get some younger guys in to fit the timeline of this cycle better. So Kobe Barlow was already moved. Cedric Guindon was already moved. Some of the work was already done. So I don't know. I don't think quantity of what was done on January 1st to 10th should really grade how the Attack pivot went. And I think they did good. And adding Cole, I think, it's up to the player to be able to take the opportunity that he's given and maximize that to develop himself over the next several years in the Ontario Hockey League. But the talent and skill set's all there for him, and the opportunity is going to be here in Owen Sound, and that addition should benefit both the Attack and Cole Zurawski and everyone else on that roster now over the next couple of seasons, I think. I'm sticking with A-.
I'm going to go B+. The only reason I say that is because I think sellers have an easier job at the trade deadline, because you're deferring that judgment. Right now, you've got the great 16-year-old prospect, and you got all those draft picks. Mm-hmm. And if you're a fan of this team, you're thinking every one of those second-round picks is going to be a star on this team in 3 years. And you got to wait to see. So B+ now, I think sellers, GMs, and I talked with Dale about this yesterday, always have sort of the easier optics at this time of year. The guys that are buying, lots of picks going out the door, you want to see results on that investment immediately. And when it doesn't happen, like in Barrie now, people start talking.
So
Pressure starts to pile up.
Was the trade with Flint selling? Because I don't think it was. Who gave up more assets in that trade?
Yeah, so that was a good trade to get Zurawski back, but still, so they're looking at Zurawski, and you see, oh, this guy's going to be a stud, but you got to wait to see that development pay off.
Sure.
But yeah, that was a good trade, I think. But B+.
The other trend that we saw continue is some teams just spend like drunken sailors, and I think Dale was able to kind of sort of take advantage of that. Like, even though a rostered player didn't come back for Connor Smith, 7 picks for an overager is a little unheard of. Do you think we're ever going to go back to a time when these trades can be a little bit more reasonable at this time of year, or is this just kind of exciting?
I think it'll change here soon with the fact that the landscape of the OHL has obviously taken a big shift here with the eligibility rules changing. The draft will be so intriguing this year because our players going to be able to kind of call their shots the way they were at one time, where they say, I'm going to go somewhere else. Now, there is other leagues. Those options are still out there. But no longer is it, I'm going the school route. I'm never coming to the OHL. Don't bother drafting me. Now, you can still take a guy who might not come. You can flip him. There's lots of things that are going to go on. But I'm kind of maybe sidestepping from what you were saying, though. You mentioned about Connor Smith being an overager. What I always get a kick out of every year at the trade deadlines, what's the difference between a 19-year-old who's going to play pro next year? He's not coming back. He's never going to be an overager. They're the exact same player, in my opinion, but overagers seem to get labeled that you can't get as much because they're absolutely done. Well, I'm thinking of a player, Easton Cowan, for example. He's not back next year, right? He's going on to pro, someone like that. So I don't want to get caught up in that other than to say that Connor Smith, to me, was probably one of the most coveted defensemen out there in the sense of if you were a contender, you're getting a champion, a proven winner. You can't teach size and the strength, and I've already been watching him with the Brampton Steelheads. He's just throwing guys around out there. The Steelheads definitely wanted him, and if you're Dale and you didn't get that player, you said you've got to pony up as many picks as possible is my guess.
I don't know if anything will change. Ultimately, it takes time to get to a competitive state. Like if you miss your window, it's going to be another 1 year on an optimistic scenario or 3 years on a maybe a more realistic scenario where your team is aged in at the right time and developed and you have the right complement of players where you think as a manager in this league that you're going to be able to try to compete for a championship. So I can understand the allure for teams when they think they have the right mix of players. Brampton's a good example that Mark was just talking about. They have a lot of players already there in place like Porter Martone, Jack Van Volsen, Carson Rakoff they traded for in the offseason. So they kind of already set the groundwork and have just the complement of players where things are timing out for this season. So I can understand it. And there's more than one. There's many teams in that situation where you sit back and you think, what am I going to do? Well, you're going to have to pay to get. When I worked in junior hockey covering the Portage Terriers in Manitoba, the GM of that team, Blake Spiller, he said this to me, and it always stuck with me. He said to me, you got to pay to play in May, and I that's always followed me around, and so I don't think that anything will change. I think that teams that want to try to compete and try to go deep in the OHL playoffs or any major junior league are going to continue to give what Greg would call sellers at the trade deadlines.
Sorry, Brian Crawford.
Give up whatever they're asking.
I'll just add this: if you look at the people that were the teams that were sellers, look what they did 2 to 3 years ago as well. And I'll take the Brampton Steelhead as a particular. 2 years ago, they sold Ethan Del Mastro and Luca Del Belbaluz, and they got a load of picks. Now they're using those picks that they got in return for those two players, and then they got McDonnell and Porter Martone in those deals with a whole bunch of picks. Now they're selling those picks because you can't use all these picks that you return. So they know the cycle, and you're going to see more of these teams that do that junior hockey cycle of selling their better players off when it's the time, use those picks, and then go and hunt it down a championship.
Sounds like a team
on.
that you know pretty well right now. You said 2 years ago for the Brampton Steelheads, right? We don't know. We'll see 2 years from now, but it sounds like a team.
This was always the window. This was always their plan, right? And I don't want to bring this up to rub it in their face, but they're 7th in the Eastern Conference in a year that was supposed to be their year to go for it, where I think sometimes the best laid plans, we know what happens, right? But I'm a big believer of that junior hockey cycle that Adrian speaks of.
I'll ask you the controversial question then before we break for the roundtable.
Greg, you reported that Dale said that he got a ridiculous offer for Carter George. I asked Dale, would this have been the biggest trade in OHL history? And he said he wasn't going to tip his hat or give me any information, so I have no idea what the London Knights offered. But he said, I'm kidding. But he said, compared to the Kingston deal, it wasn't quite as big as the Kingston deal that we saw go down with Saginaw. But if you were the GM and that offer came along, would you listen to it? Would you entertain it at all?
I just want to ask a question. Are you talking about the Kingston deals combined, or are you talking about one or the other?
I think it's the Kingston deals combined.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
So if
Not
the
quite.
question is, would you do it right now, is what you're saying?
Yeah,
If that had been
right
offered,
now,
if
this
you're
year.
giving that offer, I don't, because at the end of the day, it's still a business. And who's going to be bringing fans in throughout the second half of the season? I think it's Carter George, and he's back next year as well. You never know what could happen. What if the Attack get off to a hot start next year? Some of these young players start to really take a big step forward. I know that there's a lot of what ifs. It wasn't the time now. What are you going to do with all those picks? You maybe trade them. Maybe just to me, I think it would have been unnecessary at this time.
I'm looking at this piece of paper that we have in front of us, and you look at the one side, 11 drafted players. The other side, 1 drafted player, and it's Carter George. Like Mark said, at the end of the day, it's a business. People come, they buy his jersey, they come to the games just to watch Carter George play. I don't think I would have made that deal right now. I think you kick the can to next Christmas, see where you guys are. If you're 4 to 6, I think you need to be a buyer just for that kid.
Well, and we're going to be in this exact same position. Dale's going to be in the same position next year, and there's still going to be teams desperate for a goalie. There's still going to be teams offering their next 20 picks and 8 players and a golden toilet and new Pepsi machine and whatever it is that Dale's getting offered. So, I mean, I think from that perspective, you get him for the rest of this season. You get him until Christmas next year. You see where you are then, and then it's going to be the same big offer. I think the horse is out of the barn with these big offers and the big trades. So
he's going to be the starting goalie again for Team Canada next year if all goes well and according to plan, right? So
yeah, and if he wins a gold medal next year, then I mean the price will be as high, if not higher. So
I just think that a lot of the discussion around the trade deadline sometimes focuses too much on an NHL mindset. Not saying what we're talking about here specifically, but that is I'll use the terms asset management. These are teenagers and kids, and I think most of the GMs in this league, a lot of them, they work really closely with the players and what their plans are, and not just what is necessarily best for the team at a specific time and a specific moment. So, with that said, I think that a player like Carter George, he's going to drive the bus and have conversations whenever anything happens. It might not happen at all. Carter George is a really good player in the OHL and the CHL in all of junior hockey beyond Canada, and it's hard to envision a scenario where the Owen Sound Attack are better with him not on their team, right? So, I think that when I read Greg Cowan's esteemed report about that offer, it makes sense that the Owen Sound Attack would get that sort of offer for that sort of player, because who wouldn't want Carter George on your team? But I don't think it makes sense now. I don't even know if it makes sense at any time next season. It depends where the Attack are at.
Right?
So.
Yeah. All right, boys. Well, we've got a sold-out game against London tonight. We've all got places to be. Mark's got to finish his dinner, so I appreciate
For everybody on the video,
yeah,
delicious. I haven't taken a bite yet, though, as you can tell. I'm just
Thank you,
soaking
Shorty's
it in.
Grill.
Yeah.
Thanks, Mark.
Yeah.
And just remember, you got to May to play and stay.
What?
Thanks, Dr. Seuss.
You got to pay to play in May.
Well, there you have it, an absolutely jam-packed episode of the Bear Tracker Weekly Podcast this week. A big thank you to all of our guests, Carter George, Allison Kennedy Davies, Cole Zurawski, Dale DeGray, Scott Wray, Landen Hookey, and, of course, our fellow media members, Adrian, Mark, Matt, Greg. Appreciate the time all of you spent to join us on the podcast this week. And a big thank you to Mark Perry. This podcast also has a video version, and that's now airing on Rogers TV on a weekly basis. Check your local listings for times on when to watch it, or you can watch it, of course, on YouTube and listen to it wherever you get your podcasts. Thank you so much for joining us this week on the Bear Tracker Weekly Podcast. We'll see you next week at the rink. Cheers.
The Bear Tracker Podcast is produced in association with Blackburn Media from the CKNX studios in Wingham, Ontario. Remember to like, follow, and subscribe at Bear Tracker Pod on social media and wherever you get your podcasts.